Walls don't just sit there. They press in. They narrow how much space you have to move, to breathe, to just be yourself. And somehow inside that pressure, families find a way to grow. Today we're closing out this series by talking about that strength, the kind that gets built when there's almost no room left to build it in. We've come a long way together. We've talked about the children carrying invisible walls. We talked about families finally breaking their silence. And today we bring it all together, what it actually looks like when a family endures, even while the walls keep closing in. I'm going to be honest with you about something first. This isn't a look how inspiring resilience story. Resilience here isn't easy. It isn't glamorous. It's survival. It's adapting when you have no other choice. It's changing under pressure you didn't ask for. Families of the incarcerated live with walls pressing inward from every direction. And somehow they still find ways to breathe, to hope, and to rebuild. So let's talk about what that pressure actually looks like. It shows up as identity being squeezed down to a single label. Stigma replacing the fullness of a person who really is. It shows up socially. Friendships shrinking, community support becoming harder to find. And it shows up financially. Resources stretched thin. Doors that used to be open now closed. All of this reshapes how a family lives, how they think, even how they let themselves imagine the future. But here's what's remarkable. Families don't just survive this pressure. Many of them grow inside of it. They adapt, finding creative ways to stretch what little they have, to keep routines steady, to hold on to their dignity. They carry stigma without losing their sense of who they are. They keep imagining a future beyond confinement, even when today feels impossibly heavy. And most of this happens quietly. No applause, no recognition, just strength carried day after day. I want to say this clearly. Resilience isn't the absence of pain. It's what happens when a person keeps going anyway. And inside of all of that pressure, something else takes shape. Wisdom. Families learn to speak honestly, naming the stigma, naming the silence instead of letting it stay hidden. They learn to refuse a single story defining them. Incarceration touched their family. It didn't become their family. They pass down real lessons to their children, that enduring hard things is part of their strength, not something to be ashamed of. And they discover something most people never expect, that limitation doesn't only restrict a person, sometimes it's the very thing that shapes their strength. This kind of wisdom never makes headlines. It shows up in kitchens, in classrooms, in quiet conversations most of the world never hears. Now this series is centered on families of the incarcerated, but this lesson reaches much further than that. Illness can compress a person's identity. Poverty can compress opportunity. Stigma of any kind can compress a sense of belonging. And silence can compress the space we have to simply feel close to each other. And in every one of these situations, the same thing tends to happen. Resilience shows up, not because the walls disappear, but because people find a way to keep living fully within them. So here's what I want to leave you with as we close this series out. Where have you felt walls pressing in on your own life? Where did your own strength show up even when the pressure didn't let up? And what did those hard limits end up teaching you? Because this was never only about incarceration. It's about every one of us enduring, adapting, and still finding a way to hope. Resilience under compression is where this series ends. But it's not really an ending. Families of the incarcerated live with stigma, with silence, with real limitation. And still, they find wisdom inside all of it. By naming what they carry, by reclaiming who they are, by rebuilding what was taken, they turn walls into strength. This isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of the wisdom. Take care. Stay connected.